Welcome to Ayna Insights, where prominent leaders and influencers shaping the industrial and industrial technology sector discuss topics that are critical for executives, boards, and investors. Ayna Insights is brought to you by Ayna.ai, a firm focused on working with industrial companies to make them unrivaled segment of one leaders. To learn more about Ayna.ai, please visit our website at www.ayna.ai.
So good morning. Welcome to our Ayna Insights podcast, where today we will be focusing on a consumer tech company. So we have with us Calvin Chan. He is the CEO of USB Lighter Company. The USB Lighter Company launched in 2014 with a collection of electric lighters that charge easily through a USB port. Over the past 4 years, Chan's products have been featured on The View, Good Morning America, and an Oprah magazine. Calvin started USB Lighter Company to provide an environmentally friendly product that would eliminate our dependence on butane lighters, which cannot easily be recycled. So the USB lighter is a rechargeable lighter, and when disposed, initiates biodegradation once the plastic material reaches the landfill. So Calvin, welcome to our podcast. We're excited to have you and are looking forward to talking about your journey as a founder and CEO. So for those not familiar, could you explain what USB Lighter Company does?
Sure. Hi, my name is Calvin Chan with the USB Lighter Company. We make electric lighters. Imagine a lighter with no butane, and instead of a fuel, we're using a battery. And instead of creating a flame, we're creating a spark of electricity.
All right, thank you. And so USB Lighter Company is focused on revolutionizing the way consumers interact with fire. For the benefit of our audience, can you explain the difference between an electric lighter and a regular lighter?
Yeah, absolutely. When I first found the product, the challenge that I wanted to overcome was getting people to try something new, try something different. The main difference, again, between a electric lighter and a butane disposable lighter is we don't use butane. There's no butane involved. So you're essentially carrying around or in your hand like a futuristic device that allows you to control electricity to ignite a candle, a gas appliance, a piece of paper. It can replace anything that a butane lighter or gas-powered combustion does now. The benefit of this moving forward will be we won't be using that natural resource. There's not going to be chemical pollution in the air from the use of butane, propane, or any sort of gas used, again, for combustion. This is specifically important for people who live in small areas. For example, like a leaky gas stove pilot can cause tremendous air pollution and damage in someone's home living space. So if you think about how many people there are in the world, and you think about how many people are using these lighters, I'm sure you've used this lighter, you probably have one at your house, which is great because it was a foundational technology that allowed for survival. But we're sort of stuck in these patterns where we're continuing to do and participate in the same routines that potentially are harming our environment without us even realizing it or understanding it. So this added to the challenge that I wanted to overcome, which was, how do you get people to change?
Yeah, very fascinating. I think that's a really good point you're touching on. And is there anything further? I know you already talked a bit about sustainability, is there anything further you'd like to add on how USB lighter company provides a more sustainable solution to those traditional butane lighters that you mentioned?
Yeah, yeah, I think the the biggest trigger word for me as a consumer is when something is disposable. Um, when something is disposable and when it's in high volume, for example, like a plastic grocery bag, yeah, you can start to see the mounting effects on the environment and the communities around. You start to see landfills just being over I don't want to say popular, but overfilled or close to capacity. You're starting to see um, microplastics everywhere in water we're drinking, and the products we're touching. Um, so we need to start thinking about sustainability in terms of rate of use, right? Like how many disposable butane lighters will a consumer purchase on average over a year? Let's say it's 10. And let's say it's 10 because that product is either faulty or breaks halfway through its cycle or is misplaced, is stolen, is lost, which leads, obviously into the capitalist culture and why the business is so successful for disposable products. Um, but my product will eliminate the need for continual repurchase. So there's a cost saving value, and there's also an upgrade that you receive with technology where things can last longer and be replenished in terms of energy via battery. And there's a way for I say the afterlife of these products, there is value to people. For example, uh, the chips could potentially be harvested and used for something. The plastic material, ABS, the metal, the zinc alloy, these things can be recycled and reused by somebody looking to use non-virgin materials. Um, Whereas a butane lighter, because of the fuel inside, which is like a hazardous material, in order for that product to be recycled in any capacity, you either need to remove the fuel chamber um, and then recycle the parts of the product that can be, or for example, like a standard click lighter, a handheld click lighter, you would actually have to open up the body, clean out the inside with regulated materials that can certify its ability to be recycled cleanly after. And that process is it's impossible. That's an impossible process for anybody to undertake because the cost to do that is too high. So what you're left with is like a really reliable product, a product that we've been using forever, but its only home after you're done with it is the ocean or the earth, or and I don't think that's. I think if we continue to participate in that sort of behavior, maybe it doesn't affect us immediately. Uh, but if we get to a stage in life, maybe 50 years from now, for some of us, maybe longer for more of us, uh, we're going to see potentially an environment that we don't recognize and that we don't particularly enjoy. And thinking back, we're going to be like, oh man, we shouldn't have used so many plastic bags, or we shouldn't have bought so many of these stupid lighters. Like I think in reflection, we're gonna understand that we were in control of what the result of the environment that we're living in.
Absolutely. And so thinking back, your company was founded in 2014. How has your overall vision and strategy evolved since then?
Man, 2014. Um, I think I think when I was in my 30s, I had a I had a perspective of life that had the experience of a 30-year-old. Um, I think I fell victim to the mindset of getting work over with. Like gonna put in my 6 years, 7 years. I'm gonna build this company. I'm gonna position it for sale, uh, and then I'm gonna get to like enjoy my 40s. You know, whatever that meant, whatever that means. I would say now, um, the vision is the same. My desire to what excites me is when I see someone using my product or someone emails me, texts me, calls me, hey, so and so, or I, or this, and they're like, oh, this is so much easier. It's I'm never going to buy those other ones again. And it's also a great, like, everybody I give it to loves it. Like, it's followed by so much joy and like happiness I mean, I don't want to get rid of that. That's the I could do I could have I could do that for the rest of my life. But I would say the strategy, man, um, I don't know that anybody had a strategy for obviously the pandemic. Um, but I will say what I've learned is are probably like the on a business level, on a personal level, on a trying to innovate, trying to monetize on your innovation. The How do I put this? It's like such a so I'm 40 right now. So my dad was able to explain to me like when the recessions hit, like when I was growing up, but I didn't have a concept for it. He would say things like, hey, like we're not going to have like money to do this moving forward because the economy's doing this. He would just like frame things like very basically, and it would give me an understanding like, oh, okay, this is why we're not having whatever Christmas or whatever, whatever it would end up being. But just sort of like, listen, you're not missing out on anything. This is just what's happening. So this is how we're positioning our finances to accommodate that. I would say the strategy now, post COVID, and especially like specifically what's happening with the economy right now, which is it's kind of a it's kind of a dark place right now. I mean, in terms of my business people, other founders that I know, um, I would say that the last like 9 months has not have been challenging for most sectors. So the strategy now, I think, is for me at least, is to refine and like sort of hunker down for more of a, I mean, it's always a long term, but I would say that it's going to continue to be like a dogfight, and um, really checking in with your core values and your core benefits, and um, taking the opportunity to like evolve and refresh in a time where a lot of people uh, can't do that. Like like the strategy has evolved to be more. I'll put it this way: I feel like how I felt in 2014, now in 2024. Just the mindset of where I've had to go back to, and you know, um, it's been really fascinating. Actually, it's been supremely fascinating to see the cycle of the business um, revolve in a way, and where I am on the revolution of it. And then being able to apply experience in the history of just running the company for the last 10 years, I feel, I, I mean, you always feel all the things, I think, as a founder in terms of like, whether it's the sleepless nights or it's like the constant, like for me, like if I don't know, brain doesn't shut off unless it gets through what it needs to get through. So, um, yeah, the strategy is just, I think if you were expanding, maybe stop that, pull back, um, find your baseline again, and find like really like whatever your plans for innovation were, pull those back and do much more like I don't know, I guess the easiest way, have the price conversation on your innovation like more. Um, because I think moving forward, the challenges are going to still be there, but the customers are also there as well. So just really about focusing on how to best serve the customer base that is your loyal customer base, um, and putting them really for me, like putting them really first and foremost, because they've always been my best advocates and supporters.
Yep, makes sense. And you talked a little bit about what it was like in 2014. So let's now switch gears and focus on your journey to date. Tell us a bit more about your background and why you started the company back in 2014.
My background. My background is I was born in Pasadena, California. I grew up in South Orange County, Laguna Niguel. I was uh, uh, I enjoyed life was great until like high school for me. I don't know what it was in high school that shifted, but I became I mean, pretty much like a juvenile delinquent. Didn't really have plans to go to college or like further education. I don't know. I was always very good at business, and I saw business as a very selfish practice. In when I was 13, my concept of business was like, wait, you have to convince somebody to pay you for something. And the transaction of that I didn't quite understand, and I framed in a very negative way. So um when I struggled in like high school, whether it was like, I don't know, I think I was just very like I said, I was a juvenile delinquent. I didn't believe in what the teachers were telling me because I didn't view them. I don't know. I had a perspective issue. I don't know. So long story short, I had no plans to do. I had never, if you had asked me, like, what would you be doing, as your life's work? I wouldn't say like making electric lighters, and trying to sell them in a retail and direct to consumer environment. But I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't really have like a positive like outset for my life. So I just sort of like, you know, graduated through high school, went to junior college. And then something sort of happened in junior college. I think, I met my like first like really good mentor, Charlie Myers, in a communication arts class that I took for as in like in an elective. And I think through that experience, I like got really into film, and like I was making films. I was like in all the film classes in Saddleback, and my mentor Charlie, he's like, hey, you should probably like get out of here. And, have you ever heard of this school, Art Center, College of Design, Pasadena? And I had no idea what this place was. It's like, okay, like we're gonna go up there, you know, like this weekend or whatever. So he took me up there, also with my friend, my buddy Sean, and it was like kind of an eye-opening experience. It was like, I don't know if you're familiar with the art center, but you go, it's in Pasadena, it's up in the hills above the Rose Bowl. It's beautiful. There's like deer like running across the road. You get into campus and it's like just this big black box that's like the size of a two-story football field. And it's just like surrounded, like mm, you're in the forest essentially. I was like, damn, this is cool. And you go in and it's really small. And I met with an admissions person who he didn't tell me at the time, but ended up was his like sister. His sister worked at like student admissions at that time. And then like next thing you know, like I'm applying and then I get in and then I'm early, like I'm on a list for like if people drop out, then you get in. And then I was in the school and I was like moved up in Pasadena and I was doing film stuff, but just really a production. I was like very focused on, I don't know, I looked at the business as like, well, everybody's like trying to be a director. Everybody's trying to be a cinematographer. Everybody's trying to be like, what do people not want to do? And I'll focus on that. And like, no one really wanted to produce or like be in charge of like anything like that. So I just started learning about all the facets of it. Fast forward, I graduate, have a fashion line with my then girlfriend and a friend from back home. We're doing really well. We have financing. 2.5 years later, we lose financing. That's like, I'm like 24 or something like that. And then I wander for forever. So get to 2014, I'm actually in the ramen business. Me and a friend have a ramen shop in Hollywood, um, top of La Brea in Hollywood. It was called Ikemen. Then when we took it over and rebranded, it's called Shinya. And then life's super weird. My grandfather had a restaurant. My grandfather, well, my great grandfather, my grandfather had like the first Chinese restaurant in Pasadena, like the 30s. So my family has always been in restaurants, and like there was this big conflict, like when I was getting into the ramen business, and my family was like, "Are you sure you want to get into the restaurant business? It's like very difficult. It's really hard." But I had a partner. We had a plan. Um, then one day I get a call from our manager that my partner had fell out of an airplane. And he was very Japanese. So this is how he's explaining. He's like, "Oh, Bernard fell out of an airplane." And I said, "You mean he was like skydiving?" He said, "Yes, but they said like the chute didn't open." And I said, "Okay." So so this was like the end of my ramen business. My friend survived. He basically he was jumping alone, second jump of the day in Santa Barbara. Wind caught him, spun him, took him in a bridge, took him to the ground. Miraculously, he survives. He's alive today. He's but you know, I'm a big believer in like intuition and like the universe and like clearly some sort of message was to be received, not only from my friend Bernard, but for me as well. So I had like, I mean, this was like three years of my life of just like, you know, 18-hour days, 7 days a week, just like trying to build this thing, and then it's over. So then, truth be told, I was like, okay, I need to be surrounded by creativity and I need to be surrounded by like inspiration, like just positive vibes. So I rented this warehouse space on La Brea in Los Angeles. And I was like, really, honestly, I was going to start hosting poker games and just because at that time I knew a lot of people who like to play. I like to play. There was sort of nowhere to like play. And I was like, hey, not a bad way to make a living. That gallery space I took over was right next door to a tobacco shop. owned by a man named Funky. Um, as a good business owner, you always get to know your neighbors because, that's who you're living next to. My first interaction with Funky was so aggressive that it could have went like one of two ways really easily. I basically came in to be like, there was a back alleyway, and I was looking to load in things from the back. But in order to get to my entrance, I had to pass through his, and he had a lot of stuff back there. So I went in and I was like, hey, I'm Calvin from next door. I have this like little gallery space. There's the back. I was wondering if I could just like use it to like get in, but I was wondering if you could like open the gate and, maybe move your car so I could just get some stuff in. And he was just like straight up like, no. And I was like, okay. Um, but like I'm renting out the place next door and like that's the only place I can get through. Um, do you think like we could like, you know, compromise in any way? He's just like, no. And then he was just like, and he just was just like, I don't know. It was very, must have caught him like in a bad mood or something, or like, I don't know what happened, but so basically I pull back, said, listen, I'm sorry. You seem to be like really upset. I'm just trying to be your friendly neighbor. I'm not sure what I said, if I offended you or anything, but if we could start over, I'm just trying to get some stuff in and I'm wondering like if you could help me out. My name's, I introduced myself again. And then he softened. He was like, oh, okay, you're next door. And he started asking me all the questions. Cut to, we become really good friends. And one of the times I'm walking into his place to let him know I'm having an event, because he had 2 parking spots in front of his shop, and those are very important to his business. So he's make sure no one parks in there. It's like, I'll make sure no one parks in your spot. So every time I would have an event, I would go in and I would say like, hey, we're having an event. These are the hours. If anybody parks in your spot, let me know. Take a picture of their car, send it to me, and I'll get them to move, just because I know how valuable it was to him. One of these days I came in and he said, hey, Cal, you seen these electric lighters? Or what do you say? He's like, you seen these USB lighters? And I was like, USB lighters? What do you mean, like rechargeable? He's like, yeah. You can like plug them in your computer. You can plug them into the wall. He's like, come back here, come back here. So he's like, his shop, like you would lift up the door and then you would like go under the counter and then you would like go through all like the wall of like tobacco and like cigarette products. And then you would go in the back. He's like, yo, check this out. And it was very similar to my slim pocket handheld lighter that I sell now. And, you know, I I smoked all my life. I'm like the guy, if you meet me, it was just like you go into his house and like there was never a lighter. There was always like a piece of glass that you heat up on the stove or like a magnifying glass or like I would just if I could get away from like using a lighter or matches to light whatever I was trying to light, I would do that. So when I saw this product, for me, as someone who had like high value in my like coolness, I was like I had like a aha moment. That's all you could call it. Cut to, it just happened to be the time where the Alibaba platform, Alibaba Express platform was like sort of really more commercially accessible and like easier to use. That allowed for me to, basically reach out and cold call like 35 trading companies that I found on Alibaba that were selling this product. I was able to find out that this was the first year that China had released the mold for the product. So it was like very new to market. Um, and when I did a research into the competition in the space, it was only people trying to sell to smokers, cigarette smokers. I saw it as a product for people who love candles, because I saw the market as homes. Like, wow, if I could create a product that could get into 1 million people's homes, I could be rich, you know? Um, and at that time, I was in a position where I could just dedicate my effort to it. So I filtered it down, the trading companies I was working at based on essentially like best communication, got some sample cases in, and very quickly I started selling them in a retail, in a hotel resale space. A lot of that was luck. Like I had personal connections to like very high profile, like popular stores. So I was able to get it into the store Union and Ron Robinson very quickly. Through that, I was able to get agency showroom representation very quickly. Um, Through that, I was able to participate in trade shows, gift and accessory trade shows very quickly. Was able to have my product seen by um, you know, Adam Glassman from Oprah Magazine, which was my first piece of press from Oprah Magazine, first selection to be showcased on The View, Adam's picks in 2017 or 18. So again, the following of the intermission and what the universe was telling me was just like, this is the thing that you're going to be doing. So, um, I was a serial entrepreneur before that, failing constantly. Um, Sometimes my own doing, sometimes, your friend falling out of an airplane and he's the only signer on all the accounts. So, you can't pay for anything. You're trying to get power of attorney, trying to deal with his sister, his family, learning a tremendous amount of real life skills in terms of what potentially happened when you're running a business. Um, and from there, it's just been a master class in in business. Like, okay, trying to expand through a pandemic. Oh, that's interesting. 2022 was so successful, and then 2023 it was like, whoa, oh man, that's new too. Oh, I thought, oh, yeah, that's right. It's just like the fifth year into the pandemic. It's not. We think this is over, but it just took 3 years to get like desensitized to the long lasting effects of what it does to supply chain, what it does to um, when you overhired, you're trying to just constantly adapt on your feet to all these things, which was for me was essentially very new because I had, it's just like right as I got into my rhythm, um, another disruption, right? Uh, COVID. And then there's like, you know, 2 years into COVID, the delays, okay, you kind of got a footing again. Then it's war. It's the global economy. It's consumer confidence. It's election year. Yeah, I mean, it's fascinating. There's so much there's so much more than just trying to sell lighters to people who like candles.
Very fascinating journey, and I think I certainly learned a lot from that and a lot about kind of your journey through the different stages of entrepreneurship. And curious, what are some things you would have done differently if you could start USB Lighter Company all over again?
Hmm. I don't know that I would have done anything differently, but I would have. I was thinking in like, oh, like I'll have something that I'm proud of in like 10 years from now. Realistically, it's like 40 years, you know, like that's, I guess, the only thing that a sense of mindset, but I don't know how you get that at such a young age when it's something you never expected to do, and you're just like going based off the energy and the natural success of it. Like you buy something, you show it to people, you have 100 of that thing, they want to buy 200 of it. It's like you start that way. Um, but I think that, like again, like how can you prepare for a president who's going to raise tariffs and duties with the country you produce out of? That's going to increase the bottom line by like 20 to 30%. So it's more like, I would say, like, if it I think the question for me is like, what would I tell people, or what would I say to people, or the younger generation or whatever? I would just say, like, make sure you have to always be fluid, but make sure, like, you're listening, make sure you're utilizing all the resources that are free to you, podcasts, um, free books online, like any diversifying your knowledge base so that um, you feel confident answering all of like the tough questions, which is really like they're either like price related, or like, why do you want to do this in such like either a saturated market, or a market that someone doesn't see value in. But I would say that things take a lot longer than you think, but it's because over the time you develop a greater passion and a greater drive for what you're how to achieve that goal. Um, so naturally, it doesn't matter how long it takes at the end of the day, as long as you just get what you personally want out of it. And for everybody, that's different. But I think having the clearest picture of that in the beginning um, allows the best use of judgment on all the decisions you'll have to make throughout the process.
Yep, makes a lot of sense. And as a 10-year CEO founder, and it sounds like even more extensive history before that, is there any other advice you'd have to other entrepreneurs looking to start their own consumer goods company?
Yeah, if you can't sell it yourself door to door, then don't make it. And don't think there uh it's gotten beyond dog eat dog. It's like it's it's beast eat beast. So just be aware. But if you really believe in the benefits and values of your product, and there's a core uh like, again, for me, it's like I get a kick off of like changing the way people think about something. And if my kids could know me as the dad who like got people to like use a different form of lighter or do something differently, then that's my achievement. That's my goal. So I guess, like, um before you create something that could potentially become disposable, that could potentially because you always have to consider the effects of what you're putting out there, which is a large part of the reason why I tried to. My goal is to create like a sustainable electronics company, whatever that means to you. But to me, it means like with anything I can within the manufacturing process, within the construction of my company, to be sustainable, to use sustainable practices, to try to create um, the best product I can that lasts the longest, that will, over its lifetime, have the least amount of impact on the environment in which I choose to live in. Um, and I think moving forward, if you're, I think before the notion of, the, for example, the digital retailer, where you're just going to put something on Amazon and you're going to do this, and you're just going to move something at high volume, because it's something people want, and like a seasonal sort of cast iron pans was like this huge thing for a long time. I would knock off Le Creuset Dutch ovens. But the customer is becoming more sophisticated. The segments are becoming more targeted on who they want to support, how they want to support them. And eventually, the cost on everything is going to go up. So it's really going to be, well, do you want to buy 5 of these cheap things over the year, or do you want to buy one of these things that are, double the price, but you're going to buy one of them for the whole year, maybe even the next 2 years, maybe even the next 3 years, if you learn that like this is something that if you take care of it will last as long as like a TV remote control, or a flashlight in your drawer. It's like all these things that we're conditioned to take care of and treat gently, but with certain products we're just taught, or we're programmed to just throw them away. Maybe not even in a trash can. Maybe we don't even care for throwing it on the street, because it's just something we don't think about because it's so small. It's such a small thing. Like, how could it possibly add up to anything significant? Whereas with the industry I'm competing against, there's close to 1 billion disposable lighters produced globally a year. And that's because there's more than that being consumed and purchased, because there's more than that in population that needs the product. So I think if you're going to create something, it needs to be something that takes into consideration the environment, because I think moving forward, that's going to be important to the customer.
Yeah, definitely agree. And kind of given all of those challenges, how do you approach marketing for a completely novel solution in the lighter industry?
Trial and error. I think it's hard to market if you're relying on agencies. Granted, I don't have the ad spend power. I'm not that big of a company, so I can't demand attention from the top agencies that could potentially position my brand over the next 3, 5, 10 years to accomplish this placement in the market. But as someone just starting out, I feel I'm still new. I think seeing what works. I think for me, my email marketing, my subscribers, the people who believe in my company are, again, like I said, my biggest focus. They're my most powerful salespeople. The amount of my customers who purchase me year over year for the gifts for all of their people, community in their lives. But I think it's also understanding that change takes time. What I'm trying to market is a different way of doing something, um, going from gas to electric. Um, and as we're seeing with electric vehicles, we're starting to see it more and more. But for the most part, it's it's still an uphill conversation for a lot of people. Even for me, I have a family, I have a small son. Even if we have 2 cars, we need to have one that's gas, even if we did have the other one that's electric, because if anything happens to our son, we need to know that like there's somewhat of a guarantee. If we can't be relying on like a battery power engine, or the mechanics of that over the reliability of something that's like been so tried, true, and tested, right? So if the fact that the reason why I love my product is that there's still, I just did a photo shoot on Monday. The film and video um, woman, had never seen the product. And she's a young, hip, much cooler than me individual living in Los Angeles. And she was like, you know what? It's like, and she described everything, all the reasons why I do the product. I had this like, I was using like these matches, but like this candle I really want to finish, it's really low and I can't get to it without burning myself. And then I was like, I don't want to buy like one of those like, ugly butane lighters because it's just gonna like, they don't really work or they're just gonna sit in my thing. So, and so I obviously I gave her some, but so when you have that, for me, it gives me motivation to keep going. So I guess continuing to hone in on that energy, that experience, and that's how I market. That's my solution, capturing that more and more as much as I can. Um, I've done an okay job, I think, so far, and I'm looking forward over the next, 5 to 10 years to getting that really, really, really dialed, like a Barry Manilow jingle, you know. So that's I'm excited. I'm excited to see how the landscape changes. I mean, we'll see what happens with TikTok, like there's it's very interesting, very fascinating what's happening right now. Um, so like I said in the beginning, for me, I think the strategy now is um pull back, get back to like, stacking bread again, as they say. Watch what the market, just watch. Like, I have a luxury. For me, I can sort of, I own everything. I don't have to answer to anybody demanding anything, and I can just be patient. I can continue to serve my community, um, build when it makes sense and it's opportune. Um, but yeah, just use this time to focus on myself, focus on the brand, um, refresh, refresh where I can, um, and and realistically make it to the holidays, make it to past the election, and just see where things like big roll of a dice at the end of the year. We'll see what numbers pop out, Jan 25. Um, and then we'll spend January analyzing 24 to see how it how it met, or how it compared to what we forecasted or what we thought, and just do it all over again next to that.
So, looking forward, how does USB Lighter Company remain competitive and continue to innovate?
Oh, I mean, I think I'm the only, you mentioned it briefly in the introduction. So I have 3 models of proprietarily designed lighters that I produce, excuse me, where I'm using an innovative additive to all of my ABS that, uh, well, for example, on my Motley and my MJR models, the complete outer plastic shell is green leaf certified for biodegradation in land. My LT model has been treated with an innovative additive that's been certified by the standards for biodegradability in land and ocean. So moving forward, my innovations are create the best product in my category possible. Largest battery, longest power, best design, ease of use, sustainability, customer service. Then develop the product in a way where if it happens, I mean, my goal is to be able to provide recycling for my customers. So, for example, once they buy a new one, I can include a return sample. I can take their product back, and I can work with my uh, hopeful recycling network to properly dispose of these products. But in the case that they should fall in a trash can, landfill, or ocean, I want to make sure that the majority of my product is good for the planet Earth, which it has an element of biodegradability to it. So moving forward, I believe the innovations to achieve this will be more possible. I think even throughout this year, next 3 years, you're going to see a lot of the larger companies starting to adapt these technologies as well. So I think the fact that I'm already doing it now, that I've already gone through testing and certification, is sort of already the direction I've been heading into. All of my packaging is sustainable or biodegradable, including my plastic blister that the product comes in the gift box. I'm always trying to innovate on ways where my shipping packaging can be as recyclable as sustainable as possible. I use soy inks on all my packaging. Moving forward, we'll switch up from well, ABS into like maybe materials like aluminum or things that now we're starting to remove the plastic component from it, because we can create a more stable body in terms of as an evolution of the product. So super excited to roll these new offerings out. The main one, obviously, switching everything over to C-cable charging, is that's going to be the universal standard moving forward. But yeah, excited to keep presenting my audience and my customer with beautifully designed, reliably useful products.
Awesome. And just as closing thoughts, sustainability is a very prominent topic in the United States. Are there opportunities or potential applications to extend these sustainable practices to other consumer goods outside of the lighters?
For me personally, or for like the industry in general?
I'd say the industry in general.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think you're starting to see it. I think, well, regulations are complicated because it's all about the consumer safety. So there's limitations on what can actually be done, but the industry across the board, we can start to use less virgin materials. So anytime we can use recycled materials, anytime any part of our component build could be made of recycled components or material, these are huge benefits. I think sustainability really comes in the pricing of products too, the how you're monetizing, how you're setting, as a company, how we're setting goals to monetize on our innovation and our products, and making sure that, again, we're having all these discussions early within the process of coming out with new products, so that we're not creating a bunch of waste. I think that's a responsibility of designers and consumer good products moving forward. I mean, yeah, obviously everybody um just wants the money, but that I think the X factor is the customer. We don't know who the customer is going to evolve into, but I do believe that the customer is going to evolve into um, maybe one that sees so much junk and waste around them that there's no other option but to be focused on what you purchase. And I think that if you're able to, I don't know, I think you'll have, I just think it's a cooler way to have a company.
Yeah, really appreciate your insights on that aspect, and I appreciate you having me here today and sharing your own personal journey, how your company has evolved given all of the challenges from COVID and supply chain issues to where you're at today with marketing strategies and innovation. And hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate your time. I hope this was helpful.
Thanks for listening to Ayna Insights. Please visit ayna.ai for more podcasts, publications, and events on developments shaping the industrial and industrial technology sector.